Right now, a rally in Madison, Wisconsin, as the fallout between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Donald Trump ensues after Friday. Plus, Concerts on the Square season is right around the corner. We take a look at this year's lineup. That's all coming up on News 3 Now at 5:30. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jalen Banks. Pro-Ukraine protests are erupting around the country as a reaction to the United States' relationship with Russia since Trump took office and the heated discussion with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy at the Oval Office on Friday. A rally for Ukraine rose this afternoon in downtown Madison. Our Meryl Hubbard has the story.
Friends of Ukraine organized this protest with hundreds turning out at the state capitol to speak out against the Trump administration and stand in support of Ukraine.
This is what democracy looks like.
Locals dressed in yellow and blue, raising their signs and walking together to show their concern for how President Trump is negotiating with Russia and Ukraine to end the war. The protest comes 2 days after scenes from the Oval Office showed Vice President Vance and President Trump clashing with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
While many Republican leaders have praised President Trump for this confrontation, pro-Ukraine protesters in Wisconsin say otherwise.
A lot of people were just mortified and horrified by the display in the Oval Office on Friday. I think that was a big wake-up call, not just for American citizens, but for Europe and even for Canada and everyone who wants to stand with Ukraine and against fascism and Putin.
The hundreds at the Wisconsin state capitol stand with thousands more around the country as more protests rise up to express their alliance with Ukraine and NATO. Reporting in Madison, Meryl Hubbard, News 3 Now.
Meryl, thank you. Now we'll have more from those protesters tonight at 10. Now let's get a look at your certified most accurate forecast with the meteorologist Blaze Keller. Blaze, how does it feel out there?
Not too bad. It's a little bit chilly out here, but it has been much colder this winter. And now that we've kicked off spring, we are going to watch actually as our temperatures over the next 7 to 10 days stay above average. Especially here as we go into your Monday as we're gearing up for our next big system. We're near the 40s, Prairie du Chien, Dubuque, Platteville, 34 in Mineral Point, 36 in Lone Rock, 37 in Camp Douglas, 34 there in Waukesha, 31 in Watertown, 36 Middleton as well as in Verona. We're hanging out in the mid-30s, mid to low 30s in Dane County. We're going to eventually dip into those 20s tonight underneath partly cloudy conditions. Clouds are beginning to move on in as I'm staying out here on the weather patio. Again, it's all ahead of our next big system. This is the one that's prompting those alert days Wednesday as well as Tuesday. We're going to be dealing with heavy rain on Tuesday, breezy conditions, turning windy with gusts upwards of 50 miles per hour Wednesday afternoon, along with the rain-snow mix, and then eventually snow as we wrap up Wednesday going into early Thursday. And that might not be the only time we see a wintry mix next week, so we're gonna time it all out in the full forecast here in just a few minutes.
All right, sounds good, Blaze. We'll see you then. And you can stay up to date on the weather on our First Warn Forecast weather app. It is hourly forecast, road conditions, and the latest radar. You can download it for free in your phone's app store. Just search WISC Weather. A 75-year-old woman is critically injured following a crash at a parking lot in Stoughton Sunday morning. Stoughton police say a 75-year-old man was backing out his vehicle at 1399 US H51 near the building when he accidentally accelerated and struck the woman that was trying to direct the man when he was backing out. The woman was pinned between the building and the vehicle and was flown to a local hospital. The crash is under investigation. People took to the lanes to raise money for gastrointestinal research. The 24th annual Bowlin' for Colons event held at the 10-Pin Alley in Fitchburg. The event brought people together for a day of fun on the lanes while fighting against cancer.
The awareness of this event and the opportunity to engage with others within this community is really important. You know, when we think about the amount of science, the amount of industry, the organizations that really live and thrive in Madison. We think that there's a lot of them that are invested in cancer research, specifically GI cancer research.
According to the American Cancer Society, there are about 30,000 new cases of stomach cancer this year. The warmer months are right around the corner, which means it's almost time for Concerts on the Square season. The Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra on Sunday announced the lineup for its 42nd season of Concerts on the Square, which will run on Wednesdays from June 25th through July 30th.
And this is truly a community event. It's a free event, but supported and funded by our community, by our local community, by our food vendors. So we are planning for 10 months on putting this event together.
The free concerts will be back at the King Street corner of Capitol Square. Blankets can be set out starting at 3 p.m. and the street will be closed to traffic beginning at 5, and performances will begin at 7. And this year's season kicks off with Dancing on the Street on June 25th. Las Vegas-based group Radiance will join the orchestra to showcase the hits of Motown legends and those acts that include Vandellas, The Supremes, and Aretha Franklin.
But it's really music that will just enhance everybody's experience. You can say, is it a picnic with music, or is it a concert with a picnic?
The concert will also include the performance of an original work by local composer Autumn Maria Reed. To see the full lineup, just head to our website at channel3000.com. A local business is kicking off International Women's Month with a milestone. Storybook Ballet at Hilldale is celebrating its 25th anniversary. Its owner, Meredith Mast, has been a professional dancer since she was 17 and hopes to continue to pass on lessons for generations to come.
We have the unique component of bringing in ballet stories and fairy tales into our classes as well. So there's a lot of imagination, a lot of creativity, a lot of just the heart of ballet, storytelling, not just the physical part, but the drama and the storytelling and pantomime and costumes.
The studio's theme revolves around fairy tale books, some of which Meredith has written herself. Coming up next on News 3 Now at 5:30, Elon Musk speaks on the FAA, what the billionaire believes should happen to the agency. Plus,
Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelenskyy meets with European leaders following that Oval Office showdown with President Trump. I'm Cristian Benavides with the ongoing fallout.
3 Now at 5:30.
thank you for staying with us. World leaders met in London on Sunday to discuss ways of working together to stop Russia's war in Ukraine. The meeting, attended by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, was in sharp contrast to the dust-up that took place in the Oval Office when Zelenskyy met with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance on Friday. CBS News correspondent Cristian Benavides has more from Miami.
With warm embraces and handshakes, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy's reception at a European summit in London was a world apart from his meeting Friday in the Oval Office. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer pledged about $2 billion to supply 5,000 air defense missiles for Kyiv, now in the fourth year of its war with Russia.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting.
Starmer said he, along with Zelenskyy and French President Emmanuel Macron, agreed to work on a peace plan to present to the U.S., which has discussed brokering a deal.
To succeed, this effort must have strong U.S. backing.
Sunday's gathering followed the extraordinary public scolding of Zelenskyy by President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance.
Right now, you don't.
You're playing
cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
It erupted on live TV just as the Ukrainian leader was to sign a multi-billion-dollar rare earth minerals deal that was scuttled in the dust-up.
You don't fly, a quarter across the world for a signing ceremony for a deal with the President of the United States and turn it into a debate on American security guarantees.
Zelenskyy spoke about the U.S.-Ukraine relationship. On Tuesday, the world will be listening closely for signals on Ukraine as President Trump heads to Capitol Hill to address a joint session of Congress. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
In his remarks Sunday, Zelenskyy said Ukraine is ready to sign that rare minerals deal with the U.S. and said he thinks that his country's relationship with the U.S. will continue. Elon Musk says Verizon's efforts to provide a critically needed upgrade to the FAA's air traffic control system is failing, and it's important that Starlink take over. Starlink is a unit of SpaceX, Musk's satellite and rocket company. Verizon has a $2.4 billion contract to provide a long-sought upgrade to the FAA's communication system. It's known as the FAA Enterprise Network Services, or FENS program. Asked about Musk's statement, the FAA issued a statement saying, regarding the FENS program, no decisions have been made. This week, the agency confirmed it is testing 3 Starlink terminals. Verizon did not immediately respond to a request for comment. And Facebook allows gender bias for job seekers, according to a European human rights study. The Netherlands Institute for Human Rights determined the platform's algorithm reinforced male and female stereotypes regarding the positions it shows to users. Officials say women in the Netherlands were more likely to get, quote, typically female professions, potentially preventing them from being aware of other employment opportunities. They say Facebook's owner, Meta, should have made adjustments to prevent that sort of discrimination. Meta has not issued a comment on the matter. And now it's time to say goodbye to Skype. Microsoft confirmed on social media it is shutting down the internet-based phone and video service in May. Skype's shutdown comes 14 years after Microsoft bought the service for $8.5 billion in cash. At the time, it was the company's largest acquisition. Skype's popularity rose during the COVID pandemic, but it has faced increased competition in recent years from Zoom, Google Meet, Cisco, and WebEx. And stick around, Blaze Keller returns with another check of your First Warn forecast.
We are getting ready for our next big system, the one that's prompting those 2 alert days on Tuesday and Wednesday for heavy rain as well as strong winds, especially Wednesday. And then as we go throughout your Wednesday, we're going to watch as that rain turns over to a rain-snow mix, further into snow as this all wraps up later Wednesday into early Thursday. Monday, our clouds are going to return. We could even squeeze out a few light rain showers, and then we could see another mix before we end next week. Let's jump feature track ahead into the morning hours on Monday. Clouds are going to continue to increase, and by the time we go into the late morning, early afternoon, a line of generally light to moderate showers, maybe a few snowflakes mixing in as well as we warm on up. It will move off towards the northeast underneath southerly winds. We dry out and become more partly sunny as the day goes on, but clouds are only going to further increase as we go overnight into your Tuesday ahead of the bulk of that moisture. Again, we have those alert days for your Tuesday and Wednesday for heavy rain, those strong winds, as well as some snow. Both the European model and the GFS model continue to show this very dynamic, healthy, low-pressure system cutting through southeastern parts of Wisconsin or northern parts of the Chicagoland area as we go early into your Wednesday morning through at least the late morning hours. The GFS still wants to cool us down a little bit faster than the European model, but I do suspect that as we go into the afternoon hours, we're going to really see that rain turn over to a rain-snow mix and then further into snow as we wrap up Wednesday. So let's take a look at some of those totals. Rain, I think, is going to definitely be the bigger factor of the two. Not only is the ground still frozen, but we could pick up anywhere between 1 to 2 inches of rain, essentially Tuesday into Tuesday night. So that's a lot of rain falling over a short amount of time. It may be in your best interest to clear out any leaf litter around any drains in your yard as the ground is still frozen, not to mention get maybe some sub pumps going if your basement does flood, because this water is likely going to pond or at the very least pool a little bit. Since the ground is still frozen, it can't necessarily seep into the ground as fast. Clear out any drains so the water can go into that instead of sitting on the ground. In terms of snow, we're looking at probably 1 to 2 inches. This 4 to 6 is actually the possible system coming in on Friday. And I'll talk about that here in just a moment. But there's a couple things working against the snow potential Wednesday into early Thursday. One, our temperatures will be falling throughout the day on Wednesday, and we're expecting to top out in the low 40s. So we have to cool off a lot. The ground is still rather warm, so that snow is initially going to melt. Not to mention, it's going to be mixing in with some rain, so it is going to accumulate very slowly. But we still could pick up maybe 1 to 2 inches of snow. And then we turn our attention to Friday. The GFS and the European model are both picking up on this system as well. The only difference is the GFS is much stronger than the European model. That's why we're seeing more snow and more rain with the GFS's interpretation. So we're going to be watching that as we go into next week as well, because that can add additional snow, especially if you buy into what the GFS is saying. That brings us a decent amount of snow as we look to end next week. But that is well into the future, folks. We are focusing on Tuesday and Wednesday. We do dry out as we go into the upcoming weekend, which is going to be some good news after all of this. And then we look at the 60s by the middle of that following week.
Oh,
yeah, that's going to be that big warm up,
up.
but that maybe comes at a cost.
Yeah.
So we will see, but the focus is Tuesday, Wednesday for
But
now.
speaking of that snow and the potential rain, I mean, the last few years, it feels like whenever we could get moisture, we'll take it.
Very much so, yes. We're still very dry across southern Wisconsin.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Blaze. Still to come in sports, Andrew joins the show with highlights from the big Badger basketball game next on News 3 Now.
Selection Sunday is just 2 weeks away, and the seed that Wisconsin men's basketball draws in the big dance could depend on the outcome of today's game against Michigan State. The good news, the Badgers have won 3 straight in East Lansing, but you know it's always going to be a dogfight to get the job done. John Blackwell, a Michigan native, excels in these kind of games, puts the Badgers up 2 late in the first. He finished with a team best 19. The Spartans, though, would separate in the second half, growing an 8-point lead with less than 10 minutes to play, but the Badgers didn't go away. Nolan Winter finishes off a 7-0 Wisconsin run, knocking down the triple to make it a 1-point game, but that's as close as it would get. They scored just 1 basket in the final 4 minutes of the contest and finished 5 for 32 from three-point land, which is a recipe that's just not going to win you many games. Despite that, Bucky kept it close throughout and should be excited for another crack at Sparty. And the Wisconsin women trying to end their regular season on a high note down in Iowa City. And in the first half, it looked like that was a possibility. It was a close game through the first few quarters. And then just before half, Tess Myers beats the buzzer. It's good. Wisconsin ties it up just before the break. But in the second half, it was all Hawkeyes, including somebody that you should be pretty familiar with, Taylor Stremlow, a Verona native with the Iowa bucket. And the Badgers fall in their regular season finale, 81-66. But they're not done. They'll still have the Big Ten tournament. Elsewhere on the basketball court, Jalen, you have to see this. This is from yesterday. A Beaver Dam native, Maddie Wilkie, hit a half-court buzzer beater for Utah to win in overtime. The former Badgers shot helped her Utes beat BYU in a game and a rivalry that's called the Holy War. It doesn't get a whole lot better from that or than that, and you never know how it's going to have a connection back right here to where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, Taylor Stremlow down at Iowa doing her thing. I mean, Wisconsin, just a great state for hoops.
Absolutely. And, you know, a tough season for the Wisconsin women. Like we said, they'll still have the Big Ten tournament, and should be fun for the Badger men as well. Shouldn't count them out. Mentioned the bad shooting today. 5 for 32, their worst shooting performance in a Big Ten game in 3 years. So they should be excited for another crack at Michigan State.
And as you mentioned, another game that stayed close pretty much throughout. Michigan State had their runs, but a couple more shots here and there probably looks a lot different.
Yeah, I think they should feel pretty good coming back from East Lansing.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Andrew. We'll be talking about UW men's basketball game up in East Lansing. You know, as we inch closer to March, how are you feeling? I know they've had a couple tough losses as of late.
Yeah, I think that it's a team that's looking really good right now and not necessarily peaking or playing their best basketball, but they're playing really well. It's a team that, simply put, you wouldn't want to play against when it comes to March.
That's fair. 1 game elimination. Never know what can happen.
Absolutely.
All right, Blaze. What should we expect as we enter the work week?
Light rain tomorrow, partly sunny conditions, mid-40s for most, upper 40s to low 50s, I would say further to the west. And then it's rain on Tuesday, rain-snow mix on Wednesday, dry Thursday, with possibly another mix to end next week.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, guys. We'll see you back here at 10 o'clock.